Are we actually streaming now? Share a window. That should do it. Okay. Are we sharing a window though? I don't see it. There we go. Perfect. All right. Well, this isn't the way that I wanted it to go, but you know what? Here we are. Okay. So we are back now officially. Wonderful. Yes. Come on. I have a touchscreen thing. You think this would work better? Okay, so we are talking about. Here we go. Okay, I finished reading that. So yeah, I thought this was really funny because if you know me, if you've been here for a while, you'll probably know that I am an entrepreneur. And I've gotten some really funny questions over the years. People are like, oh, it must be so great to like wake up whenever you want and like go to work whenever you want. It's just the freedom. And I was like, you have no idea what it means. Because literally that is 100% like what happens a lot is that it seems super glamorous and like really cool. And yeah, there's totally parts about, being an entrepreneur that's like super fun, like, but also super daunting. I created some of my own product. Awesome. I also wrote that those products are over 300 pages and there's 4 versions. It seems all fun and games and glamour, and it's not. Okay. And I imagine it get very similar to priest or priestesshood. It seems like it's really hard, tedious work that goes with it, right? Like it says, like being the first one to set up at an event. I've done that for my company. That's what really like stuck that for me. I was like, oh my god, I vibe with this so fucking hard because I've literally ran events, um, and like been the first one to get there. And yeah, no window sharing. Do you mean you can't see the window, Melissa? Um, okay, so I obviously it can be deeply profound and rewarding work. Um, Yeah, I just don't, I don't want to not say that, but I'm sure it involves a lot more than just like, really awesome. A lot more than probably people think. Okay. So I have here, uh, again, like the author's just going through like a bunch of misconceptions in here and like inputting, of course, their own experience. But yeah, so the longer you work, the harder it becomes. Yep. Yes, you'll be more equipped to handle it, but it doesn't get easier. Same thing with everything in life, right? We might be more equipped to handle what's going on. So because we've had to deal with things before, but it doesn't mean it's easier. Look, I've done a shit ton of paperwork. It doesn't mean that paperwork isn't grueling to me. It just means that I can get through it faster because it's not as overwhelming for me because I've done it 50 bazillion times, right? Um, it it's like that, just because you've done like 1,500 bazillion times of paperwork doesn't mean that if someone comes and gives you like a giant stack of paperwork, you're still gonna go, ooh, like you're still gonna get that feeling. Um, I still get nervous every time we stream a ritual, especially for rituals. Every time I stream, I'm like, and then inevitably some tech thing goes wrong, and I like example right now, and I just like take all the give a fuck and chuck it in the fucking bucket because I'm like, I'm here. Like, I showed up. So there's that. And I do still get nervous on streams as well. So you become more equipped to handle it, but it doesn't get much easier. Being a priest or priestess is to be in service of others, your gods, and your community. I wanted to highlight this because, of course, at HH, we're all about the community and all about, honoring the gods. And this sentence here, I swear to you, I'm going to pin it somewhere. Um, I'm just trying to make sure I check the chats. So there were some questions here that I thought were really interesting, and I thought that could be part of the discussion in the books and club thread. How does one serve the gods in this capacity? Oh, sorry, I should hold on. What it means to have a relationship to include the community when your relationship to the divine becomes a bridge to others to find for others to find connection and meaning. How does one serve the gods in this capacity? How does one balance serving the needs of the community alongside the needs of the gods and one's personal relationship to the divine? And how do we avoid burnout within that um, within that scope? Of course, also avoiding burnout overall is important, because if you get burned out overall, you're burned out over everything, not just this one thing. But I think it is important, especially when dealing with spiritual stuff, because we can absolutely get burned out. And some of the stuff, the things that we do, take more or less energy. We used to do divination streams where on the weekends I would stream and just do readings for people. And it was really great for me to practice. But if I did that, I think normally we stream like 1 to 2 hours. For those, it was definitely 2 hours. And by the end of it, I was dead. Like, I was so energetically like empty that I couldn't really do anything else meaningful the rest of the day. It was one of the reasons I ended up stopped doing that, because unless I was dedicating an entire day for HH, I wasn't able to do that. It just wasn't sustainable for me. Um, which is awesome because they were really good streams, and I genuinely felt the divine. Um, but like, it was so exhausting. So you do have to make sure, specifically in regards to spiritual stuff, that you work on recognizing things that use up a lot of energy, things that may cause you to burn out. We definitely want to pay attention to that, especially if you're looking at um, a larger commitment, like being a priest or a priestess or anything like that, and whatever you call it, whatever the title. If you're looking and you're taking a large commitment in your spirituality, make sure that you take that into account. And again, I want us to talk about in the Discord server, how can we avoid burnout in those, or how can we also recover from burnout. And yeah, all right, so with other types of devotion, sorry, I'm going to read it the way I had it. I did it on purpose. Other types of devotion center primarily on your relationship with deity. The realm of priesthood is all about facilitating that experience for others. It is the most demanding type of kind of devotion, and also the most binding relationship we can have with the gods. So there is an air of seriousness, a weight to uh, the title and that position, and going down that spiritual path, right? All right. So that was the start of part 3. We are now starting the chapter 9, the first part of part 3, which is, what is a priest? What is it? What do they do? What's the difference between a devotee, a priest, and I forgot the, is it dedicant, devotee, and priest. We've talked about dedicants, we've talked about devotees. Now we're talking about priesthood, because this is like official stuff. Now, per every chapter, which I love, the wonderful author recounts to us a small story. And usually I don't go through it. I did want to go through this section. So, being a priest means you are a bridge. Sometimes that bridge is about helping others connect to the gods, to feel their presence. Many times that is done in ritual, or as an oracle or a counselor. For the record, please don't call yourself a counselor if you're not an actual like trained counselor. From wherever you are, like, people have to get licensed here, and I just want to make sure, because that is a legal thing, and we want to make sure that if you're calling yourself a counselor and offering those services, people know whether you have been trained or not, because not everyone is equipped to handle, and with training they teach you skills to handle counseling people and the emotional weight of it. So as an oracle or a counselor, these are baby blessings, initiations, and then there's this. And when the author says this, the story that they're recounting is that one of their friends is unfortunately dying, and it was like to the point that they were the family made the call, um, and they were doing the authors doing an offering and a little ritual for their friend to help guide them to their final resting place and lots of love and all that. So that's what they're talking about. So there's baby blessing initiations and then there's funeral rites. I think that would be under this. Uh, there's being a bridge at the end of our travels. I feel the weight of it today. Being a priest or priestess means you are not just in service to the gods, you are in service to the community. Literal fucking chills right now. Like I have goosebumps on like my arms. I hate that, but I love it. Um, and it does, and this is one of those things where I mentioned like there is a heavy weight to these, and you have to make sure that you are prepared for it or set boundaries for yourself for this. So, when one decides to take up the mantle of priesthood, you really have to consider what that title means to you. There are many words and terms one might use as a priest, priestess, druid, gothy, babalau. I don't know how to say that. I apologize. I guess not in advance in post. So, in this section, we go through some of the different types of dedication. So, Druid is a historical title used to describe the priest caste of several pan-Celtic cultures. Today, Druid can refer only to the spiritual path that one is on, or indicate that one serves as a priest within their tradition. So that's one. I've actually been the last group that I took part in for like a long period of time was actually a druid group, and actually I went there, and it was one of the places that I learned what I wasn't, which is can be just as helpful as learning what you are, I have to say. So I figured out I wasn't Wicca, I wasn't a druid, I wasn't, but like through interaction with that group, I did figure that out, and I am interested in learning more about that. But learning the historical aspect, I just realized I double highlighted it. Oops. Oh, I undo that. It's fine. Um, what it means historically and learning about the history of our paths and of the deities and etc. can help frame the future, right? What can help frame how we look at things in the future, um, and can help us define what we want for our path, as opposed to what we don't want, right? So there's druids. We also have, I'm just apologizing already. Bean Fraser. I don't know. I'm sorry. Which means wise woman in Irish, has several layers of meaning and can be a term to describe used to describe a witch, a female practitioner of magic, a prophetess, a seeress, or a fairy doctor. Fairy, is that the emphasis on the wrong syllable? I need to clip that. And actually, if you're watching on Twitch, we are going to do a little 60-second break. It helps us earn like 3 cents. Just please hang around. I'm going to actually take that time to grab a fan, or rather turn one on, because it is hot and the air is hot. That's all I got for you. It's hot and the air is hot. Ugh. It's actually not that hot here in California today, but it is. In order for me to have the wonderful natural light, I have to keep the window open, which means it gets hot in here. Actually, I don't need this because I'm not getting any sound alerts. Let's see. Some might prefer to use modern terminology. while others may choose to reclaim words from specific cultures to describe their roles within priesthood, right? Um, we have a plethora of vocabulary. Pick your poison. Pick your preference. So, are we talking about the same thing and just using different words? Or are there fundamental differences in many terms that one could use to describe their flavor, their flavor of priesthood? Yes, exactly. So these are also questions that I want us to talk about in the Discord, um, and I will copy them in after the stream. But these are good questions to think about. Like, are we just using different words um, to describe the same thing? I actually asked someone this recently in regards to just worship, because of course there is different thoughts about like the divine. Is it just the divine that the gods are? For example, what I was asking was, do you think that they're individual gods, and does each pantheon have their own individual gods, or are they this? Would you subscribe to the same, that they are the same divinity, simply presenting themselves differently with different names and identities that correspond with the cultures and what is expected from people within those cultures in the world? Um, and that we're not talking about that here, but are we using different words and just describing the same thing? Question mark. These are things to ponder. Of course, they're much more answerable in regards to priestesshood, because we can outline what we think that person might do and the responsibilities, so it's much more tangible and easier to figure out. So I highly suggest that you take some time and like actually write out what you think the task of that title and the responsibilities that person holds, and that might be able to help kind of identify um, if people are using different words for the same thing, right? The problem is the function of every priest will be slightly different for everyone, uh, both because of the different gods we serve and the traditions we follow. Absolutely. It is also important to know, like, if you're on a different path than someone, there's going to be aspects of that path that are different than the other person's path, of course, right? Naturally. But that's going to slightly change the role. And so we want to also note those, what are the differences if you're a multi-pantheon worshiper, or if you're just single pantheon, right? Um, Things like that. Cheers, hydrator, die straight, bitches. Take a drink. So in paganism, we generally, I just also want to check, right? My mic is not picking up the fan, right? Because it is vibrating the table. I think so. Okay. I think it's fine. In paganism, we generally expect our priests to be counselors, ritualists, magicians, seers, teachers, event organizers, community builders, and meditators between the mediators between the unseen and humanity. That's a lot of roles. See, when we outline that and say like what roles, we suddenly see a where the lines. Interesting. My other monitor just shut off. I don't know what's wrong with my computer today. It's being a jerk. Most of these roles focus on the wider community, and community can be an important part of the work of a priest. But there are other things, obviously. So if we look into the ancient world, we find priesthood looked a little different. Temples across the ancient world were literally the houses of the gods. They were places people came to pay their respects and worship the gods, but it was less the gathering place of the community than a modern church is. So think of it like going to visit, you know, your great grandparents if you have them, right? That's their house, and you're gonna go in there. Maybe the rest, some of the family members are hanging out there. You have, catch up. But you're going to say, hey, it's your birthday, it's Mother's Day, it's Father's Day, it's whatever. Essentially, you're coming and paying respects and honoring their position in the family, right? Same diff. Um, as opposed to like a big family gathering, right? So, the function of an ancient priest was to tend to the needs of the gods and to make sacrifice and keep relations with the gods. So, Ayo, Micus. Uh, so, yeah, it's a little bit different, right? Than we see today, be it, hold on, be it any path that you're on, right? Because times change. For the record, I can no longer see the. I'm just going to take a minute so I can fix this. Actually, I did. It just the plug came off. Oh my camera plug came off too. Oh, okay. All the plugs got loose. I don't know what's going on with that. Um, it was working before because Restream is dumb. I guess. There we go. Okay. So, if you serve as a priest to other spirits, such as Sidhe, Sidhe, I don't know how to say that. It might not have anything to do with the community at all. I don't know what those are. Um, and yeah, again, it's different depending on your path. So, some more really great questions that we're going to talk about in the Discord is what did it mean historically and through different times? Like you want to look at that in regards to the position that you're follow the path you're following. If it has this, type of title and heavier level of responsibility to it, you want to look at what it meant not only back then but in contrast to like what you think it's going to include, right? And why do you feel that this is the correct title for yourself? That's it. Okay, so the next part here that I highlighted was one needs to consider what offering your service as a priest, priestess, whatever, to the deity will entail. Again, not just talking about like things that you feel like more responsible for in the wider, broader community, but also how your relationship with that deity might be changing, evolving, growing. How will being a priest change your devotion to your gods? Will it include service to community? If so, in what way? Um, what will the title you take to describe your priesthood be? And what does it mean in the context of your devotion? So we have what does it mean to you? What does it mean in relation to your relationship with the gods? And what does it mean with you in regards to your community or to the greater community? Are you going to do anything with the community at all? Is it going to be just a private affair? I know a lot of people have these kind of titles, but it's a private affair between them and their deity. And that is 100% valid. You do not need to do anything beyond your own personal practice. That's certainly not my job as a puny mortal to tell you what title you can and can't take, when it revolves into your own private practice with the gods, right? So write your own definition for priest or whatever word you decide to use. You can keep what you wrote next to your altar in a sacred place as a reminder of what this kind of service means to you. It never hurts, right? Never hurts. Also, there is a whole lot of science behind if we see something right on the regular everyday, it's going to affect us subconsciously, right? There has been actual proven science shown that if you put a save, like just a paper with like, I'm going to save 10 grand, whatever. I am going to do this thing. If you keep it where you see it every day, there is proof that you will take subconscious steps toward that goal. It is interesting. It's crazy cool. But that's one of the reasons why I love the HH calendar, because I see it every day. And even if I don't have the time to read out the prayers or to do any other piece of worship, I've seen it, I've acknowledged it, and that includes acknowledging the gods that are represented on each of the months, right? This is one of the reasons why I wanted that in the first place, because I was like, I want to make sure to include worship in every day of my life. And if how I can do it is simply by passing by something and going, "Aw," Love to Hades or love to Poseidon. 'Cause that's this month. Ritual coming up on the 19th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's something like that's I want to make sure to include that. I put it someplace that I would see it every day. And if the very least I can do is, oh yeah, that's right. It's something, right? A step forward is still a step forward, even if it's only one. Two steps forward and one step back means you still took a step forward. So now, something that the author mentioned, Stephanie mentioned, was that some of this isn't up to you. Yeah, like we think about it, we've talked about it in a lot of the context of how what it means to us, what we think that it's going to include, or what we'd like it to include, what we all these questions about us in relation, and our choices and how what we think. And now it's important to add, like, yeah, there's also the gods. What do they think? So again, some of this may not be up to you. um and you have to kind of also like work with your deity on that. So here, like, so we did talk about in previous chapters that, like, yeah, some things like this may be a lifetime commitment, but there's also commitments that you can make with the deity that have an end, right? That have a conclusion that you can then choose to continue, right? So maintaining the right relations, very important, right? So many times a priest, as priestess, this is the author talking about their personal experience. Many times as a priestess, I often stepped in to make sure the right relations continue between the gods and the community. For example, several years ago, I was at a public lamas ritual where Ra and Selene were invoked. The majority of the ritual had nothing to do with that. So they were invoked. They were like, okay, we're here. What's up? We're here for the party. Um, and then they were just the ritual went on um and closed, and they weren't even involved in the closing. They just it wasn't really they weren't the focus, but they were invited and they came, and then they, as I highlighted, it was they were the energy was not great. It's like your great aunt sitting in the corner of the room going, I came to the birthday party and they haven't even offered me a drink. It's been like a half hour. I am giving you the fucking stink eye. Right? Like, it's rude. People come to your house, to your party, whatever, you ignore them. It's rude. It's especially rude when it's with deities, right? Look, they came all the way here. So it's like saying, you called us, we showed up. Why are we being ignored? Rude. And the author noticed it, and they weren't the only one who noticed it. So there were two other people, and at the end of the ritual, after it had been closed, and again, these deities were not mentioned and said bye-bye to. Hello, thank you for coming, bye-bye. So the three of them weren't leading the ritual, and they went into another room. They did a little thing and did some offerings and closed, mentioning Ra and Selene. And the author notes that, like, yeah, the energy settled after that, and the three of them weren't the ones leading the ritual. And one could argue that it wasn't our godly or energetic mess to clean up, right? I'm going to continue this. But even if it wasn't our mess to clean up, it was our obligation as priests to maintain good relations with the gods and to fix the missteps of others. If I'm at a party, and I'm just going to my own experience, I was raised very much. There's a protocol to events within the Armenian community. There is there is that, and it's very similar, I'm sure, to others, where, like, for example, if you're offering food, you don't just put it on the table unless it's like a huge party, it's serve yourself. But, like, if you're offering food at like a 10-person party, you need to go to the oldest person in the room first, and you need to offer them first. Or if you've been like, okay, who wants coffee, who wants tea, and you bring it down, you need to serve them first, because they're older, right? And there's a protocol. So we need to follow those and say, for example, if I'm not the host, I've done this where I'm not the host of the party and the host is doing something else and people come in, I will go greet them as if I'm part of the hosting party. I will, offer to give them, drink or whatever, and go take care of it. Why? Because it's, we don't just all want to sit there, and I'm happy to help, just like, Stephanie was happy to help with this situation, the author. Um, and no one had to ask them to do it. They just did it, right? They saw, and they felt it was part of their duty, and they helped. I love to help the host. I saw it as part of my duty as a good guest to help the host. If I was comfortable greeting the other guests, I was comfortable doing that, and I'm happy to do it. Um, and look, I just also want to point out, if you go to someone's house and the host of the house is busy, whatever, and someone knocks over a glass of water, are you gonna wait for the host to get back to, not even a glass of water, let's say a glass of juice, a glass of wine, whatever, something that needs to be cleaned up right away. And the host isn't there. Maybe they're in the bathroom. Are you gonna wait for them to get back for you to go, oh yeah, this spilled, it needs to get cleaned up before it stains? How long has it been? I don't know, like 10 minutes. How long have it been gone? That's like lame ass. No, most people are gonna get up, go get the paper towels from the kitchen or get a rag from whatever, and help clean it, as fast as they can, because we all know that feeling, right? Just because it's not your mess to clean up doesn't mean that you shouldn't help when you can, or that you wouldn't do so. So, you know, uh, what is that, like? Know when you're a guest, or I can't remember it's not I think know when you were a stranger is one of them, but it's like act like a guest. I can't remember the Delphic maxim. So, okay, maintaining lore and traditions. This is also super important, right? The priest is someone who knows the stories of the gods and recounts them to people. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So many people were storytellers, right? Bards were a thing for a reason. We love stories. We tell stories, and so much, like, the myths teach us. Things like Aesop's fables, they teach us lessons. We learn from stories. Be they stories of fantasy, be they stories of our neighbors, be they stories of uh, of the gods. We learn things from stories, whether they be how to treat the gods, whether they be how to be better people, whether they be, the story that of someone who did something stupid, from your friend, like someone who your friend knows who did something stupid, that you're like, oh shit, I didn't know about that. I'm gonna not do that. Note taken. Put that in the filing cabinet, right? We learn things from stories. So the priests and priestesses, those people who are dedicated to the deities like that and take on that role, passes down lore and stories of the gods, often using them as teaching tools. Uh, these could be rituals for coming of age. Sorry, let me just do that a little bit. Just as stories of the gods provide a shared foundation within a group or tradition, the rituals ones. Hello, Zen. Um, Sorry, had an alarm. These rituals of coming of age, a baby blessing, seasonal rites, things like belting, things like the solstice. Um, Thank you for the follow, Zen. Welcome. We're a Hellenic polytheistic pagan channel, and we are doing our book club, Dedicate, Devotee, and Priest by Stephanie Whitfield. These rituals, okay, I remember that. Initiation into a tradition. I think Wicca has that. And funerary rites. Oh, here we go. In tradition, Wicca, you would see these as initiatory rites. Please feel free, everyone, Discord, Twitch, YouTube, feel free to put in your path. And feel free to put in your path while I put on a 60-second break and figure out what the hell this is. It was nothing important. Um, Wicca, you could see these as initiatory rites, initiatory processes of attaining all 3 degrees. I don't know what the degrees are. Sorry. In more eclectic pagan circles, this could be a priest or priestess holding holding the seasonal rites and passing on the meanings behind each Sabbath to the group. These rites form the spiritual foundation for the community and give us a sense of shared experience. Community is so important. That's why we value every single person in the community. We appreciate all of you joining. We appreciate you sharing your experiences. We learn from each other and have a sense of camaraderie in, at the very least, the love of our deities, the love of our path, right? The love of our ancestors. If you do ancestor work, I'm trying to think of different things. But that's what binds us together as a community, right? The mutual respect and care and compassion for each other's paths and each other as humans, as well as the love for that which we worship, practice with, work with, etc. Uh, we love our gods, and we love that you love our gods. You love your gods as well, right? I have used that so much in talking to people who are not of the same path. Like just reminding, like, yeah, it's not about us, right? It's not about us. It's about all of us. It's about our love for them. So a priest is the one who knows the rituals. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. The bridge between people and the gods. This is perhaps the most important function of a priest, whether it is through rituals one leads or through writing, through their writing on a deity or serving as an oracle or channel for the deity to speak through them. A priest is a conduit for the divine. So it's there is, for a lot of people who are being a more public priest, priestess, oracle, etc., for the divine, a dedication to, how I would call it, the children of the gods. I don't, when I say that, by the way, I don't literally mean that I am the child or that we are the literal child. It's like, you know, the formal religious speak of like, we are the children of the gods, right? We worship them, we love them, right? So there is a portion of that, if you are doing this work publicly, that is going to be part of dealing with the community and maybe having some people come and ask you, come to you and ask questions, or ask you to divine for them, etc. In addition, the priests are the ones who know the rituals, knows the rites and offerings to make to please the gods. These are important. For example, knowing what kind of offerings that are traditionally associated with deities, as well as like modern ones. So things like precious metals are very much offerings that could be done for Hermes. You can give coins. However, a more modern offering is Red Bull or an energy drink. Example. Oh, here's another one. This one's a more adult one, so but it's easy. So Dionysus, traditionally, grapes, wine, fairly okay, right? Easy to figure that one out. More modernly, I personally, because I smoke marijuana, it's legal where I'm in, right? I live in California. It's 100% legal here. We do not condone doing illegal things, and if you do illegal things, we told you not to do them. So I actually keep jars for fire, because California is also a place where there's a lot of fires. I don't put the butts for my joints or the dried up weed, if I smoke it, into the trash, because it could potentially be a fire problem. So I put them in the jars that I have from previous purchases. You can kind of see the, right? And then when the jars are full, I either throw them away, or I actually have several jars that are, again, filled with the remainings, that are put on my altar for Dionysus. call it the ghost of the weed, if you will. And that's a more modern like offering, right? You can absolutely do that. And knowing the differences and knowing some of the historical and the modern offerings is really helpful, especially not only for yourself, but also if you are someone who is being community facing, people might ask those questions because that's a very, very common question, right? What can I offer? Um, and knowing the modern ones as well as the historical ones is great because maybe someone doesn't have access to something that is historically given. Um, for example, maybe you were going to go to the grocery store and get some rosemary or some bay leaf, right? And they are flush out, or for some reason, the grocery store that you went to just isn't stocking it. And the next one is, 20 minutes away and you have to get to work and you wanted to do this before you went to work. Well, you got what you got, and you can't make the material suddenly appear in the store, right? And you don't have time to go to the other one. Being able to give that information, like if they asked you the day before, what kind of offerings could I get? And you list a bunch of them, and one of them is the bay leaves, and that's the one that they were going to get. And now that's the only plant that you listed. That's all they got. Knowing some of the newer, more modern offerings also helps because that's stuff that we have available to us today in the modern day, right? So you'd be able to give that information to them as well. This also means the priest is the one who facilitates the connection between the gods and other initiations and rites of passage. Knowing the rituals is just as important because it is the thing, it has the roots in the ancient offerings that are brought in today, and is a great is again one of those ways of connecting to the divine and connecting through the connecting for in my opinion connecting in a way to those who came before us, even if they're not our ancestors. I don't do ancestor worship for a reason. It's personal. I just don't like a lot of my relatives. I'm not sure my ancestors would like me very much either. So we're just gonna be like, no, it's okay. I don't need to bug you in your afterlife. But it does make me feel more connected to the people who honored the gods before me. That the community that honors, that works with, that worships, that practices with the gods is timeless, just as the gods are timeless. And being able to participate in these rites and facilitate them. Also, again, plug, we have the Hades and Poseidon ritual on the 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So knowing some of those, like for example, every ritual we start and end with thanking and welcoming or saying goodbye to Hestia, Auntie Hestia, goddess of home and hearth. That's something that has been done since way a long time ago and is very important for reasons that we won't go into in this, stream for right now. But that is something that everyone has done. And that means that someone who lived, whatever, 1,000 years ago, all those years ago, also did the same thing, honoring the same God that you are doing right now. And I feel like that's also something we forget, that many, many, many ages, centuries, generations ago, someone was standing in this same spot doing this same thing that you are right now. How crazy is that? That's really cool. And it allows us to feel a little bit of that timelessness, right? And a little bit of that connection to the gods. And helps us connect to them and to those in the larger community, in the timeless community. So part of being a priest is also experiencing and understanding that and being able to bring those things into the modern day and to the community that honors the same gods that you do as well. So that's why the importance of knowing those rights and being able to do that for the community and understanding that connection. Now, there's also beseeching the gods on behalf of the community. So the author says, I've seen it argued that the difference between a shaman and a priest is that the priest is the bridge between the people and the gods, while a shaman is also one who contends with the gods and the spirits. A shaman the shaman is a lawyer of sorts, dealing with the good and the bad spiritual beings, reminding the gods of their promises to the people, and battling spirits that are harmful to the community's well-being. And the author says that I say the priest is in many ways, a blend between the two. I actually remember meeting someone early on in my spiritual path, and they called themselves a shaman. And I remember being like, "Why are you a shaman? What does that entail? What did you do?" And they didn't actually have these answers, and I was like, "Oh." And that's where I started being like, I would like to know more about these definitions and like what they mean historically in modern day, and that's why I love this book, because I am that person with all of the questions. So the pagan priest is, no worries, my CS. Bye. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna put questions in the Discord later, so feel free to poke in there and share your thoughts. Um, the pagan priest is a bridge between the unseen and the community and upholds the rights of the gods, but they also are the ones to go to with spiritual problems akin to the ones a shaman traditionally handles, right? A priest might exorcise ill spirits or bless a house or do baby blessing. Whew, excuse me. Counseling and advice giving. Again, I would like to put a little caveat in here that if you are using a term that has to do with something that is defined legally, something that someone has to get training and certifications for, please make sure that you denote whether you have or haven't had that specific training or certification, because we want to make sure that we are being transparent and allowing people to understand whether we are or aren't certified in certain things. So back to the book. Counseling and giving advice can take many forms for a priest. Usually this revolves around how to connect with a deity or helping others process their experience with a deity. That was all. I just wanted to bring that definition that the author was giving for us. And frankly, even I'm just going to put this out there, even not being a priest, I know a lot of people who get these questions. I've gotten these questions, and I am in no way a counselor. I do not have the title of priest or priestess, or take it on at this moment, though personally would like to work toward it. But many people ask these questions in general to other members of the community, especially if one is saying that, says that I'm an oracle, again, putting that your relationship with the deity as a public thing as well. You may get these questions. And I think it's great how the community helps with that. I think, as the author said, when it comes to being a priest, you're gonna for sure get these questions. You're for sure gonna get them. So you might want to make sure that you have some expertise and knowledge to be able to do that. And that may also include life advice. Actually, so that having been dedicated to their gods for a long time. So this is, it's pretty self-explanatory there. That one of the aspects of being a priest or priestess is that you have a relationship with the gods, right? So it takes how long does it take for relationships? A long time. It takes time for relationships to build, and there are different levels of relationships. I would die for my bestie. I would take a bullet for that bitch. Would I die for like my client? No. I'm a caretaker, so I have a client that I take care of. Love her to bits. When my work with her ends, when my job with her ends, I'm very sure that we're still going to be friends. But even with the time that I've worked for her and the level of knowledge I know about her, I know some very intimate information about her. Some things that I don't even know about my bestie, but I would take a bullet for my bestie, right? Different relationships are cultivated with different people or different divinities. And regardless, all of those relationships took time, right? And that's something to absolutely keep in mind when saying that you're having a high level relationship, right, with a deity. Have you taken the time to work with them and know them and understand and gain knowledge about them? if you're saying that you have a best friend and you're going to take on you have a best friend and you've known them for like what 5 years, and you're going to take on the title of priest or priestess or any one of those, you might also want to take some of that time, like maybe just like you would put the time in the 5 years for your friend, you might want to take some time to get to know them too, right? And know about them, and maybe talk to other people about their experiences with them. I've absolutely spoken to other people about my client. I've spoken to her mother, I've spoken to her housemates, I've spoken to a lot of people to kind of get a better understanding of that person. Um, I have not spoken to a lot of people about my bestie, like who know my bestie. I've spoken to her partner. Um, I've met her kids a couple times, but I have spoken and learned so much of the lore from her about her. So there's different ways you can cultivate those relationships too and gain that knowledge and expertise. And I just wanted to point that out. So that's actually the end of it. We have our suggested exercises, which I will also put in the chat. And all right, let me look at what's going on next. So we do have, let's just go ahead and read these. So spend some time journaling about what being a priest means to you. Again, you can do this in the server. You can do this on your own. I'm not a big journaler personally. So for me, I would just have a think or a meditate. You don't have to write it down. What word or title best describes your priesthood? Like or with your relationship with the gods? It's the same thing as thinking about, am I using work with, worship, or practice? It depends on your path. It depends on how your relationship with the gods and what you want that relationship to be. Like, for example, I would say I worship more of the gods. However, in the future, I would like to work with Hecate. I already kind of, said hi and stuff, but that would be a relationship in which I would actively be working with her as opposed to simply worshiping and basking in their radiance. So why have you chosen this word or title in relation to your work? Create a statement of purpose describing your work as a priest. Is this something good? This is something good to come back to and reassess every so often, etc. Right? Evaluate if anything has changed, because things change over time. And are there new layers to your work that you discovered that you have realized now versus when you first wrote the statement of purpose? Think of it like a mission for like a business statement. Or a mission for a company, right? A lot of companies have missions, and it's usually on their website. And it's usually like 2 to 3 sentences about what their company strives. For example, my company, putting this out there, come say hi. Please don't say anything about my church and stuff on those profiles. My business, Money Munch Kids, our mission is that Money Munch Kids is dedicated to teaching kids kindergarten through high school about money management and financial education to better build a foundation for their future. That's the mission. It's very simple. It's about what you do, why you do it, and if you want to go into depth on further information about it and go into more depth, absolutely. But a purpose can be similar to a mission statement. Very simple. Which of the different roles of a priest touched on in this chapter do you fit into? Are there other roles? Other roles you wish to take on as part of priesthood? What tools or training do you need to be able to incorporate these roles? Okay, well, now we're doing a little bit of fun info dropping. Okay, so I'm just going to say it here now. I have actually already started a Tumblr. I've never been on Tumblr, but a social medias. And I, as of this year, am going to be working on publicly my path to priesthood. And as I've been gathering and thinking about, I've been thinking about this for a long time, I'd say at least a year to 2 years. There are different things that I thought to myself that I need to know, that I need to incorporate. And in fact, I went on and talked to several people that I know and respect and within the community for their thoughts and opinions on it. Turned into a giant document, a huge fucking list. But one of the things, tools and trainings, and I'm going to touch on the counselor bit as well as other paths, is that, as we mentioned here, you need to know the stories. I believe, for my own my criteria for me, my standard for me, nobody else. Okay, feel free to take this, but I'm only imposing this on myself. I believe that I'm going to, in part of my own training for myself to become a priestess, is I need to know front and back the myths of the gods that I work with, that I worship. Um, and I need to have a good understanding to be able to retell at least some of the major stories for not only the top five religions in the world. So we're talking about Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. Uh, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I know I wrote it down. But also the top five paths religions within the pagan community. So I need to learn about Druidism. In fact, I'm going to go and actually see the ADF, which is a Druid organization, and see what they're training, because I know they have training. So if they have training, I want to do it. I want to know. Wicca and Wiccan. Want to know backwards and fronts. I like the rites that they talked about. I have no idea. I knew there are some. My bestie was a Wiccan. Was Wiccan a Wiccan? Was a person of the Wiccan path. I don't know. I need to know about the Norse gods. I need to know about the Celtic gods and path and what that's called. Etc. I need to know these well enough. I need to I have some training already because of my job, but I want to get more training in counseling. I don't want to become a counselor, but I want to know enough that if someone asks me, I can say, okay, here's some suggestions that based off of, for example, DBT. It's a dialectic behavioral therapy, right? That some tools from this that I've learned, but here are some resources to go look for yourself and research more for yourself. And here's some terms I would Google, because I'm not a counselor, but I'd love to give you a running start, right? These are tools that I think I need to know. I think I need to study astrology, astronomy. I think I need to know more about the sciences and geology. I need to know more about the different kinds of divination. These are the tools and trainings that I think that I need to incorporate, and I'm putting out there for inspiration for anybody who wants it. That, these are the things that I would be thinking about and I would write down as far as what tools and training that I need to incorporate in the roles that I think are associated with priestess or with priesthood, that I would include in my my role as a priest or priestess. And because, yeah, being a counselor is part of the roles that, like, we touched on, that I definitely would want to include. And I have had people come to me and ask me for questions. I actually have a wonderful story about one of the members of the server, who obviously I can't name, who's trans, and came to me asking about what deities that they, within the Hellenic pantheon, that they should look into and pray to in regards to certain things that are associated with their experience as a trans woman. And fortunately, I also care for a trans woman, so I actually had a little bit more information than I would have had they asked me a year ago. I have a lot more information than I would have had if they asked me a year ago, like, or a year prior to that. And I ultimately, and they asked me actually specifically if I could help, or if I knew someone who was also trans within the community that I thought would be able to help them. And I was like, well, I actually might be able to help you. And they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, I'm a cis woman. But because of my experiences, I actually had that information. And I had some, but I didn't have enough. So I was like, here, give me a minute. I knew where to find the information. That's also part of that, right? It's also part of someone who just wants to help out the community, right? Like, I firmly believe we are not in the age of memorization. We are in the age of knowing how and where to find the information from reliable, reputable sources, right? And being able to discern if that information is from a reliable, reputable source. So I was able to actually pull even more deities and within the Hellenic pantheon that would be of assistance to them, because obviously, um the question was in regards to doing things that affirm their gender identity, of course, right? That's a very common thing. And obviously I was like, well, of course, Aphrodite, goddess of love, is also involved with self-love, but we also have other deities and other beings within the Hellenic pantheon and within the religion that are also trans. And they didn't know that. And I was able to give that information to them. And of course I said, look, I am not an expert. This is not my expertise. I understand and recognize that I'm a cis woman. I can only give you some information that I know and that I, found some reputable sources. Here it is. Go with a running start, my friend. And I was able to help because I knew that information and knew where to find it, right? So just even knowing where to find the information, even if you don't have it memorized, even if it's in the path that you follow yourself, is just as important. So that fit very much in the roles that I would like to continue on in my path. But some people, that's really heavy, and that's stuff that maybe they don't want to deal with. Like, dealing with people's personal problems is hard. And that may be something that you don't feel qualified to do, or maybe for your own mental health, you don't want to do, right? So, oops, what happened? No, I didn't mean to do that. A Hellenic pantheon on love, because the Greek world, because in the Greek world, love only goes up, not down. I think we can love people from a distance. First off, I'm a big person on the 7 types of love. This is also important. Like, one of the things that I want to do is to be able to speak on the topics and topics associated with the community, because I've been to talks and I have seen people say things that aren't correct. And I knew for a fact they weren't correct. And I had to do actually, as a Hellenic polytheist, I'd like to point out that this is actually, and it did not go well. It didn't. I was in college. It was a professor. Oh, hi. Sorry, excuse me. That's not allowed here. Goodbye. So, we have the 7 types of love within Hellenic polytheism. It's my podium. I love it. I actually have it taped up next to my mirror. And I don't necessarily know specifically about regards to like love only goes up and not down, but I can say we can love people from afar. I love many members of my family. I also don't talk to many members of my family whom I love. Okay. And love does not always equal tolerate, because we have our boundaries and we need to enforce them. And love for yourself means enforcing those boundaries just as much as it means, respecting other people's boundaries, or other deities' boundaries, or deities respecting your boundaries, right? Further than that, I'm not sure to go any further, but like, please, I would disagree with that, actually. Many of the deities in the pantheon have expressed care, historically, in the myths, and compassion and love for humanity. They don't necessarily love when we disrespect them, just like anyone else, any other human wouldn't appreciate if we disrespect. And there are rules and protocols and things, like we mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if you were here earlier, for the bit about the ritual where Ra and Selene were called, but they were just pretty much ignored for the rest of the ritual because they weren't the focus of the ritual. But then they were also not said goodbye to at the end of the ritual, at the closing. And they didn't love that, right? So not giving that level of respect can definitely piss off some people, and definitely would piss off some gods. There's also the bound respecting the boundary, like respecting someone's boundaries is a form of love, right? We respect them because we care, and we should respect everyone's boundaries. But It is a form of love. It is, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember which one's the love of the community. But us establishing boundaries, like a god can't just pluck you and claim you and make you worship them. That's not, it doesn't work that way, right? We have free will for a reason. And frankly, a man convinced against his will is of his own opinion still. So that, good example of that. As I said, I smoke weed. It's legal where I live. In my house, in my previous house, I smoked it inside. It was okay for me to smoke it inside because it was mine. It was my house. I now live with other people. This isn't my house. And the request has been, don't smoke it inside. Don't smoke like actual flower inside. You want to vape? Fine, it's fine. Get an air filter, which I did. I bought 2 air filters. Me doing all of that and smoking outside is a form of respect and love for the people that I live with. Us saying, I don't want to, I'm sorry, I just don't feel like I want to work with you right now, or I'm not open to it, or I'm not ready for it, to a deity. And then, again, they can't, I mean, they can probably, but like, they're not going to make you worship them, because a man convinced against his will is of his own opinion still. And that is a form of love. Oh my gosh, hello. Suddenly a bunch more people watching. Hi. I can see it on the note. So hi, I'm V. This is Hellenic Herald. We are a Hellenic polytheistic pagan channel. Welcome. Please feel free to list your path in the chat. We're just actually finishing up our book club, and we ended up on another subject, which I love talking about. By the way, if anyone wants to come up and share an experience, just let me know in the chat. If you're in the Discord, let me know in the Discord chat. I will have to pull you on to the restream if you're on Discord, because I'm not streaming with OBS right now because it decided to shit a bed. But welcome. So there is other ways as well. Like we talk a lot about how the gods sometimes, again, enforcing boundaries is a form of love. Will show us how to enforce boundaries. Will show us, not just tell us through divination, but show us the tales, our stories, our lessons, our ways for us to learn about the gods. They're multi-purpose. And I will also point out that there are many different versions of the stories. Many people, for example, know Medusa, the story of Medusa, as that she was required to do something against her will by Poseidon, and ended up having Athena, her going and saying, like, look, I'm not a virgin anymore. Some shit happened I am not happy with. And Athena's like, oh my God, what? You're not a fucking virgin anymore? Fuck you. I'm going to make you into the snake-headed lady, right? There's that story. There's also the version of it where it goes, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that happened to you. No, you should never have to fear any man ever again. There is a price for this, my darling, but I promise you, you will be safe. And, she's like, yes, please. Yeah, I don't want any man to ever come near me ever again. This was a horrible experience. And gets the snakes. There's also the story that Medusa was not a human at all, ever. Medusa was a Gorgon. There are many renditions of the stories. There are many tellings. Many of the gods also have things like double birth stories, where there's one that Dionysus came and just showed up and was like, yo guys, I'm a deity, what's up? And then there's the story that Zeus took baby Dionysus after his mother was, I think that if I recall correctly, it was that she asked to see the godly form of Zeus. I think it's like Dionysus Zeus's kid. I feel like I might be mixing up stories, but I'm pretty sure that there was one where Dionysus was sewed onto Zeus's thigh and then carried by Zeus, and then born came off of wherever he was tied onto the thigh or the leg. Definitely for sure one god has that story. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Gio. See, and there's someone in the Discord server who was saying like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. So obviously I don't quite know them like the back of my hand, but there are those stories as well. And we have to think about, when we're thinking about the pantheon and how they work and treat with each other, as well as how they treat and work with us as humans, that history is written by the victor. And a lot of history is also written by men, um, by humans who may misinterpret, who may reinterpret on purpose, who may choose that some part of the story doesn't necessarily seem relevant to them, so they excluded that, right? A lot of stories were passed on through, speaking before they got written, right? So if you ever played a game of telephone, you know how that can distort the message, right? So we also have to take, when we think of the gods based on the stories that we have to realize that it may not be 100% the full version, the correct version, the correctly translated version. I've had many discussions about translations with many people I've known. I actually had a previous client that I took care of, and she was very religious. And the minute she found out I was a pagan and I was a Hellenist, she was like, "Oh no, no, it's totally fine. I respect you." But also next day, "Your religion is wrong." To which because she would be like, "This, the Bible says this," and I'd be like, "Who wrote the Bible?" Like, I swear to God, I broke her brain doing this. "Who wrote the Bible?" And she was like, "God did." And I was like, "No, no. Who wrote it? Who put pen to paper?" Because she had cited that one of our stories was rather cruel. Um, Agape. I don't know what it is you're typing, but I do know agape. I know that word. And so and then the next day after, I pointed out to her that it was written by people, and I was like, "Also, you're Jewish." And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Do you read the Torah?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Do you read the Jewish version of that?" "No." And I'm like, "Okay, so you're reading it in English. You're Jewish. You knew it had to be translated." So like, things get lost in translation all the time. All the time. And we have to understand that. We have to understand all of these different factors affect how we see, how the gods are portrayed, and then how we see them. So it's important to look at those. It's important to talk to our community. It's important to look at different sources and then base that off of, remember to take everything. Eusebia! Yes! Oh, I'm going to get the fucking paper. I'm going to legitimately get the fucking paper that has it. Ow. I hurt myself. Okay. It's actually attached to other papers. So I'm just gonna say the 7 forms of love because this is like my hill to die on. I'm sorry. You don't need to see the mess on my bed. You don't need to see that. Yeah, cultural bias is real as fuck. Eros is romantic, passionate love, very much relating to the physical form. Fil, uh, Philia. I always say this one wrong. Philia. There we go. Philia. Affectionate, friendly love, the love of our friends, and like their everyday or neighbor and such. Storge, unconditional familiar love. I will always love my little brother, no matter how much of a dick he acts like sometimes, because I fucking love him. You know. Agape, selfless, universal love. This is when you help someone who has dropped their stuff all over the floor, and you're like, "Oh my god, of course I'm going to take my time and help." You help clean up that because I have agape for you. I everything, everyone. Ludus is playful, flirtatious love. This is like, you know what, that person at the grocery store who's kind of cute, and you're like, "Hey, what's up?" You might be in a relationship, you might not be looking, you might not even really want to date them, but like, it's fun. We can do a little flirty. It's fine. No one's getting hurt. We're all having a little fun here. Pragma, committed, long lasting love. These are long term relationships. These can be with people, these can be with the gods. And philat, philat, philatia, philatia, which is, I'm probably butchering all of these. I have not practiced ancient Greek. I do not speak ancient Greek. But that is love of self. So, um, is it cultural or metaculture? So there's not a cultural bias. Um, I don't know that I would call it cultural. It's probably just religious bias, or I guess you could call it culture, the culture of the religion. But again, We also want to make sure that we have a saying in HH, which is, if we're talking about those translation scriptures written in Hebrew. Yes, exactly. Oh, dude, I'm Armenian. I have a book that's called it's Kalila and Dimna. Fantastic book. Totally read it. It's great. It's basically some fables that were originally in Farsi. I'm Persian Armenian. My dad's side is Persian. Well, my dad's side is Persian and Armenian, and my mom's side is purely Armenian. A little bit of Russian. But like those stories, I've read them with my grandmother and with my father, and they have told me that this is as close as it's gonna get, but that's not quite how the story went. And I'm like, oh, um, and so like in every language, um, in addition, we have to think about, again, I grew up a certain way because of my family's history and the cultures and the rituals. And I mentioned earlier in the book club that there is a protocol to things in the Armenian culture that I have experienced. Um, and it's a very strict protocol. And if you don't do it, like, and no one fucking tells you, by the way, like, no one goes, here is the list of how this should go. Like, because when I got married, my husband came into the events, and like I prepped him for some of it, but otherwise I was like, "Oh, you used to write Farsi. It's a pain in the ass." Oh no, I'm just a pale ass bitch. I'm just pale as fuck. I know I don't look Armenian, or Middle Eastern. I think I got a lot more of that, a little bit of that Russian gene. Um, but yeah, there were a lot of things that he couldn't have known, and I didn't even think to tell him. Like the thing about when you're serving people or when you're saying hi, like you have to stand up. Anytime anyone leaves or comes in, you have to stand up and everyone greets them. The host introduces them, you know. When you're serving, you have to serve the oldest person first. He served the person that was near him, that was the closest to him first. And my mother literally pulled me aside and said he needs to go and say a sorry to the eldest person, to your grandmother, because he didn't serve her first. And I was like, he didn't know. I'm gonna go say sorry for him. And she was totally fine about it. She understood. But like, and people got uppity about it. There are things, there are protocols, and my experience with that made me actually less of a strict pagan, strict polytheist, strict in the rituals. A lot of our rituals are fairly casual, because they're for everyone, even the newbies, especially the newbies, who are new to Hellenic Herald or new to Hellenic polytheism, or just new to being pagan. And that it's because of those experiences that I had within my culture that have shaped my perception and my practice, right? So each of our own individual backgrounds is going to affect how we perceive the stories, how we work within our practice, work within the gods, and how we walk through life. Not classically, the Armenians and the other Middle Easterns were closer to the Greeks and Arabians. I actually am not great at history. It's one of the things that I want to dedicate some time to, and might start streaming some videos and movies in the server. I'm just saying. Because I definitely need to learn. Oh my gosh, I just learned a little bit about animism. It doesn't strictly follow animism, and I actually know someone in the server for sure that you could ask about that. Their name is Corey. And they're not around a lot. I actually speak to them more on like video chat because we privately DM. But if you're not part of the server, I haven't done this today. Oh my gosh, everyone. Here. Oops, not at. There we go. No. Oh, there it goes. Okay, perfect. So that is the link to the Discord server. I keep using the @ sign instead of the exclamation mark. And I actually have an appointment at noon. So those are our links. Please feel free to follow us on all social medias. We're going to start posting a bunch more because I actually started a content calendar where we will be posting clips of our old rituals. We'll be posting some of our streams. We're posting some information. We have a huge library of over 500 titles that have been dedicated, donated to us from various members of the server. This is a digital library. Anyone can go so long as you join the server. That's the only way you're going to have access. Oh, you don't think you can click those links? No problem. There should be a link in our bio. Check out our bio. There should be links in our bios for everything. Everyone is welcome in the server, regardless of path. Doesn't matter if you're pagan, doesn't matter if you're atheist, doesn't matter if you're Christian, Catholic, Jewish, whatever. Multi-paths are also welcome. Systems are welcome. We're, of course, super like allies and LGBTQIA plus friendly. HH is a place that welcomes all, regardless of your path. So long as everyone respects each other, is kind to each other, and plays nice with each other, you're welcome. And feel free to open tickets to ask questions to the mod. Feel free to ask questions within the community. People love to share about their practices. This is all of our like special interests. So we welcome all sorts of conversations. Yeah, awesome. It's really great because a lot of times we get more people on Twitch. And so I'm glad that you found it and that you were here to, go through that and make sure that works. There is a waiting period. For those of you who are joining our server, we do have a rather strict gate because we've had some raids and we have over 1,000 members in our server. That's 1,000 people that we as mods have to look out for and protect the safety and also keep the fun and the vibes high and the drama low for everyone. So there is a minimum wait period of 24 hours. We usually give you all a couple of days to make sure you get all your required roles and do your intro and have some time to look around the information channels. So please take that time and enjoy all of that within the gate until the time comes for gate entries. I did just do them this morning, so anyone who joins today is going to have to wait until the next round of entries, usually again like 2 or so days. Please don't bug the mods. We have a lot to do. We do streams twice a week, our book club as well as our gaming stream. We have rituals coming up every month. Like I said, we have our Hades and Poseidon ritual on the 19th, my birthday. And we're going to be doing a special birthday stream, which I haven't technically put in the server yet, but we're announcing here anyway. We're going to watch Chaos. I have been avoiding it. I've been avoiding watching clips so that we can get the live reactions and enjoy it with everyone on the server. I couldn't think of a better way to spend my birthday, except if I could like poof all of you into my house and we could have cake together IRL. But feel free to bring your own cake. And we do lots of activities. We do weekly question of the week. We do weekly intentions. We have, oh my gosh, we have so much. We feature one article from our, again, over 500 titled library that was been put together, organized, and made beautiful by our amazing resource committee. We are always staffing for volunteer roles. You can put applications in any time for any role, for being a writer for the server, being readers for rituals coming up, for volunteering to help take care and manage the library, because that's a big job. So please peruse the information channel, see what types of roles and things that are available within the community, and welcome. Thank you all for joining me for this week's book club. I have like 10 minutes to go get ready for my next appointment, so I gotta run. I love all this conversation. Thank you for the questions, and we'll see you all next week. We are going to do the next section, which is Chapter 10, Service to the Gods. Let's see, we're on 159 here. And this is what page? 168. That's 8 pages. Let me see. Okay, we'll just do one chapter each time. So next week we're doing chapter 10. It's 8 pages. It's actually a little bit less than we normally read, so it should be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And right here. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being present. And also, as always, a big thank you to our sponsors, our supporters, the boosters of the server. They allow us to stream in HD like we're doing now, and allow us to have lots of fun emojis and stickers and things for the server. So huge thank you for that. Aw, thank you, Melissa. That Ebot is one of our Twitch mods, who is also Melissa in the server. who helps with IT, who helps with our accounting. Big thank you to all of our mods. Big thank you to the people who support us on Patreon. If you do want to support us financially, please do so via Patreon. It's the place where we get the most money. Twitch takes 50% of subs. So that. And yeah, let's see. We also have our Twitch subscribers, our Patreon peoples, yeah, and our Discord boosters. So big thank you. And when you're in the server, you can see them mentioned in our monthly posts. We have informational posts every month about what's coming up, some new things, and we're getting ready to launch a few new channels in the server. So make sure you guys stay alert and on the announcements, and may the gods bless you. May your gods bless you on your journeys. Thank you, my friends. Have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Happy Friday. Bye, everyone. Oh my God, it's been a while since I actually ended a stream on Restream. How do I do that?